Welcome everyone to round 3 of FIDE Grand Swiss 2025. On your screen is the top seed of the tournament, R Praggnanandhaa, rated 2785. He's just 20 years old and today he takes on Boris Gelfand, one of the legends of chess who has played for the World Championship match in 2012 against Viswanathan Anand. Born in 1968, Boris is 57 years old and well, the most interesting part about them is that Boris has actually worked with Praggnanandhaa as a trainer. This happened in 2020 back in Chennai, where there was a camp organized by Microsense company. The earlier camp was with Kramnik, and then Kramnik decided that, okay, in 2019, a camp with Kramnik was held, and Kramnik decided that one more trainer was needed for these talents, and he asked if Boris Gelfand was interested, and he was. And that's how Boris came to Chennai to train Prag, Gukesh, Arjun. This was in January 2020. And as you can see now, Boris and Prag are now facing off against each other. Nothing could be a prouder moment for a trainer to see one of his own sort of proteges here playing against him. And I believe they also worked with each other in the Westbridge Anand Chess Academy then. So d4 by Boris. And you know, Boris Gelfand loves to play d4 and he has kind of stuck to that move. d5 played, c4, e6. Knight comes to f3. And Praggnanandhaa now has to decide what to play here. He goes knight to f6. One of the main moves that Boris likes to play here is knight to c3. He's such a classical player that he doesn't indulge in all these London systems or sidelines. g3, he goes for the Catalan here. But now Prag goes bishop to b4 check. Interesting line. You can block with bishop, knight d2, bishop d2. He goes bishop d2, and many ways to play here, a5 being one of them. Goes bishop e7, and now bishop comes to g2. A knight comes out to d7. It's going to be the closed Catalan here, queen to c2, and Prag pushes his pawn to c6. I think this is one of the most solid weapons that Black has facing the Catalan. They're not going for immediate equality, but rather a long struggle. And that is exactly what Prag wants when facing Boris. That let's just keep playing. Let's see if I'm able to play a long game of chess and put my opponent under pressure. Knight comes to c3. And now Praggnanandhaa goes for the stonewall setup here with c6, d5, e6, f5. Very solid. Solidifying his knight on e4. Rook a d1 played, bringing the rook in the center. Prag has 1 hour 41 minutes. He's well prepared. He takes the bishop on d2. Now, on one hand, you get the bishop pair, and that's quite a nice feeling. But on the other, the remaining pieces that white has on the board, very well placed. You know, this knight, bit weak here. The e5 square is a bit weak, so the knight is looking there. And then there's this very nice maneuver, which Boris is going to now execute with knight e2 to f4 to d3, looking at this square. He goes bishop to d6. And Gelfand plays rook to b1. He's trying to play on the queen side with b4, b5. That's the space where Black wants to create something. White wants to create something, sorry, on the queen side, while Black tries to stop it with a5. And Boris plays knight to e2. Such strategic positions are something that Boris loves and enjoys. And we have a very fighting position here. Prag can decide whether he wants to play knight f6 to e4 now. He goes queen to e7, bringing his queen up. And Gelfand goes knight to f4. Knight comes out to f6. Trying to come into e4 here. He pushes his pawn to c5. Now a bold decision here by Gelfand. Of course, taking here would be not so good because after e takes f4, the e6 pawn is weak. So bishop goes back to c7. Knight jumps to d3. And now the e5 square is something that you want to sit upon. Bishop d7 played here by Pragg. He's trying to get his bishop out like this because it is a bad bishop. It is fixed inside the pawn chain. But after bishop e8, it has potential to come out. Yes, bishop e8. And now rook to c1 played. It will be interesting to see how Pragg decides to continue. Knight g4 feels like a good move, but g5, wow, he's playing aggressively here. He's trying to create some play on the king side here with g4. Maybe h5, h4 could be an idea. f3 played by Boris. Not so sure about this move, f3. Well, it does control the e4 and g4 squares. So king h8 played, and he plays his rook to e2. Maybe somewhere with the idea of e4. Queen comes to g7. And now Gelfand plays his rook to b1. He is looking for the b4 break. g4 played. And f4. Praggnanandhaa goes h5. It's insane that after 23 moves, all the pawns are still on the board. Reminds us of the Gukesh Yaz Khan game. Rook g8, and now finally the first exchange. B takes a5 taken. Bishop takes a5, and now Pragg has to worry about one issue here, which is the b7 pawn. It's weak, it's backward, and it's going to be coming under pressure. His hope for counterplay is, of course, with the move h4 on the king side. That's what he is hoping for. Queen b1, and Pragg goes rook a7. He's defending it in the most efficient way, trying not to make his pieces passive. The rook defends here, attacks here. Knight comes to c1, and Pragg starts playing on the king side. h4 break. Knight comes to e2, and king to g8. A useful move now. He takes on h4, and can Pragg pick up this pawn? Yes, he can, because in the end, after take, there is some problems here, that there are checks coming in. So knight g3, knight comes to h5, and knight to f1 played. What a fighting game this is. Both players trying to continue the fight, reaching till move 40. Knight g3 played, and now the queen comes to h4, and it seems like we are going for a repetition here. Knight f1 played, and queen becomes back. Seems like a draw is very likely. Knight g3. But Pragg wants to play on. Wow, rook h7. And Pragg is like, Boris, let's fight. I still want to continue. Bishop takes h5. Bishop comes back to f1. And bishop e8 played. There's no reason that Pragg should be better here. But look at this idea that Boris Gelfand has come up with. Rook g2 to g3. He'll now bring his other rook into the game and try for the h3 break, which is going to be quite painful for Pragg. He goes queen h4. He's still maybe not got the hint of his opponent's plan here. Queen h4. And now both players get 50 minutes on the clock. Rook b2 played. Rook can go to g2 now. Bishop comes to c7. And the main point being, if rook takes, then queen h2 is checkmate. So bishop c7. Pragg took close to 25 minutes for that move. Rook g3. And now you can chop off this knight. But Pragg wishes to keep going. He goes king e7. But now there's this beautiful move. Knight d3 to f2. Brilliant. Boris is going for it. And play h3. Knight f2. Now bishop comes back to d8. And bishop d3 played. So white slowly improving his position. Rook h5. And now finally h3 is on the board. Pragg takes. And the game gets super exciting now. Rook h3. White is the one who may be for choice here. With the two rooks activated on the G and H file. The bishops aren't doing much here. He goes bishop e2, attacking the rook here. And Pragg takes the rook. Rook takes rook. Knight takes to knight h3, g5 is coming in. So takes it. And queen h4. Attacking the queen. Attacking the knight. The knight jumps in. Knight to g5. And this danger is somewhere. Like if you take, maybe there's fg. He goes bishop h5, offering a trade. And if you go like rook here, there is check and e3 is hanging. So have to be careful. He takes. Queen takes. And now we are on move 51. Pragg has 5 minutes. Boris 13 minutes. He goes rook h2. And have to be careful as Pragg. You can't be passive because rook h7. And actually it's black who is on the offensive. Queen g4 check. And rook g2. Aha, we are getting a repetition in now. Queen h5. Rook h2. Queen check. And it's a draw coming in. What a fight between these two players. And whoa, Boris is like, not a draw now. I want to fight for a win. Plays king f2. Pragg chops off. Bishop takes g5. What a move. My goodness. Fg5. And guys, you cannot take here. This is losing because after rook h7, it's a winning position. Pragg goes e5, making space for the king to come to e8. Rook g2. Man, Boris Gelfand, insane fighting spirit there. Queen h4 check. And king g1 played. Wants to push the g pawn down the board. Pragg goes queen h3. But maybe it's going to be a dangerous position now. Okay, if you push, there is queen e3 with maybe perpetual coming in. So queen e1. Now defending the pawn on e3, putting all the hopes on the g-pawn. Guys, 59th move. Final move now. Before time control, look at Boris's time. He has 1 minute, 22 seconds. He comes down to 7, 6, 5. He needs to maybe play g6. With 1 second, plays rook g3 and blunders. Blunders big time because now queen h4. Just pinning here with the threat of f4 is game over. Praggnanandhaa finds, oh, no, does he play? Yes, plays queen h4. Amazing. And it's all over, guys. f4 does not just attack this way, but also this way. That's the problem. And let's see when Boris Gelfand comes to the board, what is his reaction? Because this one was huge moment in the game. He comes back to the board, writes down the move queen h4. And look at him there. He is not happy. Look at him. Shaking his head there. Well, he didn't see that one coming. And it's unfortunate that with 15 extra minutes on the clock, there's nothing that he can do against this threat of f4. What a moment. He now has his head in his hands. He's shaking his head. Praggnanandhaa now looking at other games. He knows he's got this in the bag. What a fight this was. Firstly, Praggnanandhaa not agreeing to a draw. Now Boris, who didn't agree to a draw and had realistic chances there. It was a good decision by him, but he missed this moment. Queen f2. And now f4 is just over because he's threatening queen f5 check. And Pragg calmly opens a bottle of water, calms himself down. This is the sign of a great player. They are not in a hurry to prove that they are winning. If they are winning, it will win. We have so many people watching this game. Nodirbek, Arjun, and f4 played. And the problem now, of course, is if ef4, there's rook g3 winning. So you have to move the rook. Rook g2. And he takes, queen takes f2. If rook f2, there is fe3 attacking the rook, then ed4 as well. So he plays king takes f2. And now it feels like rook a2 should win. But the problem is this position is a draw, in fact. So Pragg rightly takes on e3 with a check. And Boris goes up king to f3. And now e takes d4 is winning, but even more clinical is e2. With the point that e2, king e2, rook a2, trade e d4 and then wins. So e2 found. And you have to come back king to f2. And many ways to win. e d4 should win. But perhaps the most powerful is rook e3, threatening to queen, and after king e1 you have e d4, threatening d3, d2, and black is too quick to win. Pragg, of course, just calculates it like a silent assassin there and finds the move. Rook e3, beautiful move, and it's all over. He resigns, and Praggnanandhaa scores a win. One of the things that I've always admired about Boris is no matter how he loses, he's always very respectful of his opponent, analyzes with them, talks to them. It's just his way of saying that I respect chess a lot. And yeah, a huge win here for Pragg, because the game was heading in the direction of a draw, and he moves to 2.5 out of 3. Players are extremely tired. The game went on for 6 hours almost, and they're just analyzing here what are the possibilities. At the end of this video, you will see some final moments of Pragg after his win, and also a short interview with the youngster. We hope you enjoyed this game. It was the clash of generations. It was the clash of two fighters, two uncompromising players with a fighting attitude, and the world of chess was treated to a wonderful encounter which ends with smiles on the faces of the players.
What? This part is just different. I thought I'm still... Pragg, it was a long day in the round 3, and you finally won. And how are you feeling? Like 2 wins in a row.
Yeah, I don't think I should have won this game, but yeah, at some point we were repeating, and then I thought I can play on, but I just underestimated this whole idea of just getting the rooks to the king side and pushing h3. And then after move 40, I just tired. I couldn't really think after that, and I was making some random moves which didn't have any any point. I was just making moves, and then and then I think I was worse at some point. Maybe at some point I thought I maybe lost. Like it was borderline saving or loss, and I was not sure. I thought I am somehow saving at some point, and then when getting low on time and I was creating some counterplay, it went wrong. But yeah, should have been a draw.
Do you think this long format, when you get like 30 minutes after the 40 move, helps you to come back or go in a different direction in the game? Do you think that matters? Or?
Yeah, I don't think I like this format. It's just too long.
Yeah.
And like every time you're in time trouble, you get additional time, which is also like helping players. Yeah, like if you can come up with better moves at the end. I don't know if it's good or not, but